Most people believe respect is something you earn by speaking louder, proving more, or becoming useful to others. That belief quietly keeps them trapped. In reality, people don't respond to what you say about yourself. They respond to what your behavior implies, especially the behaviors you never announce. There are individuals who walk into rooms and nothing dramatic happens. No speeches, no confidence displays, no performance. And yet the room adjusts. People speak differently around them. Boundaries appear without being stated. Assumptions soften. Disrespect hesitates. This isn't charisma. It isn't dominance. And it isn't manipulation. It's something far quieter. Psychology shows that humans constantly read for signals of internal order, signs that someone is regulated, self-directed, and not dependent on approval. When those signals appear, others unconsciously recalibrate how they treat you. Not because you demanded it, but because their nervous system decided it. Most people try to change how others see them. Quiet power changes how others feel around you. And that shift happens before words are exchanged. In this video, you're not going to hear advice designed to impress. You're going to see the subtle habits that quietly reorganize social dynamics. Habits that don't make noise, don't seek validation, and don't require explanation. If you've ever noticed that some people are treated differently without trying, this will explain why. And if you felt that you're often misunderstood, overlooked, or underestimated, this will show you what actually changes, that not externally, but structurally. Nothing here is about becoming someone else. It's about removing the signals that weaken your position without you realizing it. Stay attentive. These shifts are easy to miss, but once you notice them, you can't unsee them. If this perspective already feels familiar, subscribe and stay here. Not for motivation, but for clarity that doesn't ask for attention. Most people believe how they are treated is determined by personality, status, or how well they communicate. Psychology shows something far quieter happens first. Before words land, before opinions form, the nervous system of the people around you is already reading signals. These signals are not conscious. They are not logical. They are sensed. And the first habit that shifts how people treat you is not something you do outwardly, but something you stop doing internally. Over-explaining yourself. When you explain too much, you communicate uncertainty. Not because your reasoning is flawed, but because certainty does not need defense. The moment you begin trimming explanations to only what is necessary, others unconsciously register self-trust. They may not articulate it, but they feel it, and behavior follows feeling. Over-explanation is often mistaken for clarity, kindness, or intelligence. In reality, it frequently signals a need to be understood in order to feel safe. Jungian psychology would describe this as an ego-seeking external confirmation to stabilize itself. When you speak less and allow meaning to stand on its own, you signal internal alignment. This does not mean becoming cold or dismissive. It means trusting that your position does not collapse without reinforcement. People respond to this by filling the silence with respect. They adjust their tone. They hesitate before pushing boundaries. They sense that persuasion will not work easily here. The second quiet habit builds directly on the first: emotional non-reactivity. This does not mean emotional suppression. It means your emotions no longer rush ahead of you. When someone challenges you, disagrees, or subtly disrespects you, most people react immediately. Their tone sharpens. Their body tightens. Their need to assert appears. The person across from them now holds leverage. When you allow a pause instead, something powerful happens. The other person's nervous system detects uncertainty, not in you, but in themselves. They do not know what they triggered, and humans become cautious around what they cannot read. Non-reactivity is often misinterpreted as weakness by those who rely on emotional escalation to dominate. But psychologically, calm regulation signals control. The person who can stay centered during pressure is perceived as higher status without effort. Jung referred to this as psychic containment, the ability to hold tension without discharging it impulsively. People feel safer around this, even if they don't know why. Safety and respect are closely linked. When you stop leaking emotional reactions, people begin to measure themselves around you. The third habit is subtle but deeply influential. You stop narrating your internal process. Many people talk through decisions, doubts, and feelings as they happen. They externalize thought to feel accompanied. Quiet power internalizes processing. Decisions are made privately. Conclusions appear fully formed. This creates the impression of decisiveness, even when the internal process was long and complex. People trust outcomes more than processes. When you stop broadcasting uncertainty, others stop trying to influence it. Psychologically, this shifts the power dynamic. Those who narrate their inner world invite commentary. Those who don't are experienced as self-contained. Jungian individuation involves separating one's inner authority from collective noise. When people sense that your center is internal, they unconsciously treat you as less available for manipulation. Advice slows. Opinions soften. The urge to interfere diminishes. The fourth habit is comfort with silence. Silence is one of the most misunderstood social tools. Most people rush to fill it because silence exposes insecurity. When you remain at ease within it, you reverse the pressure. Silence becomes a mirror. Others begin to speak more, reveal more, or adjust themselves to regain comfort. This shifts the interaction without effort. You are no longer managing energy. You are holding space. Silence signals self-sufficiency. It suggests you do not require stimulation, validation, or approval to remain grounded. This unsettles those who rely on constant feedback loops. Over time, people approach you differently. They prepare more carefully. They listen more closely. Silence trains others how to treat you. The fifth habit is reduced urgency. Urgency communicates dependence. When you rush to reply, agree, or decide, you imply that the moment controls you. Quiet power slows time. You take moments before responding. You allow decisions to breathe. This is not strategic delay. It is internal pacing. When others sense that you are not pulled by immediacy, they recalibrate their expectations. Pressure loses effectiveness. Psychologically, urgency activates survival responses. Calm pacing activates trust. People feel that someone who is not rushed is not desperate. And desperation is the fastest way to lose influence. When you move slowly, others slow with you. They stop demanding instant access. They wait. The sixth habit is boundary consistency without explanation. Many people set boundaries and then justify them. The justification becomes the weak point. When you state limits simply and hold them calmly, others learn quickly where the line is. You do not need to threaten or convince. Consistency teaches faster than words. Over time, people stop testing what does not move. Boundaries held without emotional charge signal self-respect. Jung would say this reflects ego strength, the ability to define the self without collapsing into guilt or aggression. People sense this strength and respond with adjustment rather than resistance. The seventh habit is attention discipline. You stop giving attention to what does not align with you. Attention is currency. Where it goes shapes behavior. When you withdraw attention from drama, validation seeking, or disrespect, those dynamics lose oxygen. People notice. They either rise to meet your level or drift away. Both outcomes increase psychological order. Together, these habits form a pattern. Not dominance, not performance, regulation. And regulation changes everything. Social hierarchies are rarely built through confrontation. They form quietly through perception. People are constantly scanning for cues that tell them where to place you in their internal map. Not consciously, not verbally, but instinctively. The habits described earlier function as signals of internal structure. And internal structure is what humans respect most, even when they claim otherwise. When someone lacks inner order, others feel compelled to dominate, guide, correct, or dismiss them. When inner order is present, interference feels unnecessary and risky. The first mechanism at work is projection. When you stop over-explaining and narrating yourself, others are forced to project meaning onto you. Projection fills gaps. The mind dislikes uncertainty. When you provide fewer signals, people assign you qualities based on their own psychological material. Often, they project competence, authority, or depth, because those traits feel safer than chaos. This is why quiet individuals are frequently overestimated rather than underestimated. Silence allows imagination to work in your favor. The second mechanism is nervous system regulation. Humans co-regulate. When one person is calm, others adjust unconsciously. Your emotional steadiness becomes an anchor. In conversations, meetings, or relationships, the most regulated nervous system quietly sets the tone. Those who react emotionally cede control. Those who remain centered absorb it. This is not manipulation. It is biology. Calm communicates safety, and safety commands trust. Trust reshapes how people behave toward you. Another mechanism is scarcity. When your attention is not freely available, it gains value. Most people leak attention everywhere. They respond immediately. They engage every comment. They explain every feeling. When you stop doing this, your presence becomes selective. Scarcity changes behavior. People prepare more carefully when they interact with you. They listen longer. They speak more precisely. This is not because you demanded respect, but because the interaction now feels meaningful. There is also the mechanism of identity consistency. When your actions align with your values, people sense coherence. Jung emphasized that the psyche seeks wholeness. Incoherence creates discomfort. Coherence creates gravity. When your boundaries, pacing, and emotional responses align consistently, others stop testing you. Not because they fear you, but because inconsistency invites challenge, and consistency closes loops. Your behavior becomes predictable in a stabilizing way. Power struggles often emerge when people sense uncertainty. They probe, they push, they challenge. When uncertainty is absent, probing feels pointless. Your calm refusal to engage in unnecessary conflict communicates that your sense of self does not depend on winning. Ironically, this is what places you above competition. People compete when they believe resources are scarce. Quiet power signals inner abundance. Another subtle mechanism is contrast. In a world of constant noise, stillness becomes noticeable. Most people are reactive, expressive, and fast. When you are measured, selective, and slow, you stand out without trying. Contrast attracts attention without chasing it. Others begin to adjust their volume around you. Meetings soften. Conversations deepen. You become a reference point rather than a participant fighting for space. There is also an ethical dimension. Quiet habits reduce harm. When you do not escalate, explain excessively, or dominate conversations, others feel less threatened. Threat perception drives defensive behavior. When threat decreases, cooperation increases. People become more honest around you. They reveal more. They respect you not because you overpower them, but because you do not need to. Over time, these mechanisms compound. Small adjustments accumulate into reputation. Not a loud reputation, but a felt one. People begin to say things like, "They're different," or "They're solid," without being able to explain why. This ambiguity protects your position. What cannot be clearly labeled cannot be easily attacked. Jung spoke of the shadow not as something dark, but as something unintegrated. Quiet power integrates shadow by acknowledging emotion without being ruled by it. This integration radiates stability. Others sense that you are not fighting yourself, and those who are not internally divided are rarely challenged externally. Eventually, people stop trying to change you. They stop projecting their insecurities onto you. They stop seeking validation from you. And this is the deepest shift of all. You are no longer part of their psychological negotiation. You become a fixed point. And fixed points reshape the systems around them without moving. These habits do not guarantee admiration. They guarantee clarity. Some people will drift away. Others will draw closer. Both outcomes are signs that the hierarchy has shifted. You are no longer managed by others' expectations. You are self-positioned. This is how treatment changes. Quietly, permanently. At some point, the shift becomes visible. Not dramatic. Not announced. Just noticeable enough that you begin to sense something is different. People who once interrupted now pause. Those who tested boundaries stop pushing. Conversations feel cleaner, shorter, more deliberate. Nothing about you has become louder, yet the world around you has adjusted its volume. This is the stage where quiet habits move from internal alignment to external consequence. And it often confuses those who practice them, because the change arrives without effort. The reason this happens is not because people suddenly decide to respect you. Respect is not a decision. It is a reflex. When the signals of self-regulation, consistency, and inner authority stabilize, others adapt automatically. They are responding to a system that no longer feeds chaos. Humans are deeply sensitive to feedback loops. When a behavior produces no emotional reward, no escalation, and no leverage, it is abandoned. When calm presence produces clarity and containment, it is reinforced. Over time, people adjust their behavior toward you without realizing why. One of the first noticeable changes is conversational economy. People speak with more intention. They ramble less. They prepare more. This happens because your attention has become selective. Attention is not only what you give, but how you give it. When you listen without reacting, when you respond without urgency, others feel the weight of their own words. They sense that speech matters here. And when speech matters, people become careful. Care is often mistaken for respect, but it is actually self-awareness activated by your presence. Another shift appears in how conflict dissolves. Not because conflict disappears, but because it fails to ignite. Disagreements no longer escalate. Provocations lose energy. This is not because you avoid confrontation, but because you do not feed it emotionally. Conflict requires fuel. Emotional reactivity supplies it. When fuel is absent, conflict collapses under its own weight. People learn that pushing you leads nowhere, and humans rarely repeat behaviors that lead to emptiness. There is also a shift in how people seek your approval. They seek it less, but value it more. This paradox emerges when validation is no longer offered freely. Approval that is scarce feels meaningful. Approval that is abundant feels cheap. When you stop praising unnecessarily, when your agreement is earned rather than automatic, others recalibrate. They begin to value your perspective because it is not guaranteed. This is not manipulation. It is natural valuation. Social roles also begin to rearrange. You may notice that people assign you responsibility without discussion. They trust your judgment in subtle ways. They defer without submission. This is hierarchy without domination. Jung described this as natural authority emerging from individuation. When a person is internally unified, others instinctively orient around them. Not because they are commanded to, but because coherence attracts alignment. Some people will become uncomfortable during this stage. Those who relied on your previous openness, reactivity, or availability may feel a loss of control. They may accuse you of changing, becoming distant, or withholding. This is not a failure of quiet power. It is evidence that the dynamic has shifted. When someone loses access to influence, they often frame it as emotional withdrawal. The truth is simpler. You stopped performing the role they depended on. It is important not to explain yourself here. Explanation reopens negotiation. Quiet power holds. Those who can adapt will remain. Those who cannot will fade. This sorting is not cruel. It is organic. Relationships either reorganize around your new structure or dissolve. Both outcomes restore psychological order. Another change appears in timing. People respect your pace. They wait. They follow up less aggressively. They accept delays without resentment. This happens because urgency no longer works on you. When urgency fails, pressure fades. And when pressure fades, respect emerges. Time is one of the deepest signals of status. Those who control their time are treated differently than those who surrender it. Internally, something else happens. You stop monitoring how others treat you. The need to track shifts disappears because your center is no longer external. You are no longer calibrating yourself against reactions. This internal decoupling is crucial. The moment you stop watching for validation, validation loses its power. And when power is removed, behavior normalizes around you. Jung emphasized that psychological maturity involves withdrawing projections. As you withdraw your need for approval, others withdraw their need to control you. This mutual withdrawal creates space. In that space, authentic interaction becomes possible. Not everyone will enter it, but those who do will meet you as an equal, not a negotiator. Eventually, the changes stabilize. You are no longer surprised by them. Being treated with clarity becomes normal. And normality is the final sign that quiet power has integrated. There is no thrill, no performance, just order. And order is the deepest form of influence. There is a moment when the habits stop feeling like habits. They are no longer things you remember to do. They are simply how you exist. At that point, the shift becomes irreversible. You are no longer managing how people treat you. You are no longer adjusting yourself in anticipation of reactions. The social environment reorganizes itself around your internal order, and you move through it without friction. This is the stage where quiet power becomes permanent, not because you hold it tightly, but because you stopped leaking it. Most people never reach this stage because they confuse influence with effort. They believe power must be maintained through constant action, expression, or reinforcement. Quiet power is different. It stabilizes precisely because it is not performed. It is the byproduct of inner alignment. When your nervous system is regulated, when your boundaries are consistent, and when your attention is disciplined, you stop broadcasting signals of need. And need is what invites manipulation, disrespect, and chaos. At this stage, people's behavior around you feels simpler. Not necessarily kinder, but clearer. Games disappear. Subtext fades. Interactions shorten. This is not because others have become more evolved, but because complexity no longer finds a place to attach. When you are internally straightforward, others cannot hide behind ambiguity. They either meet you honestly or disengage. Both outcomes reduce psychological noise. You may notice that praise feels neutral now. Criticism too. This emotional neutrality does not come from detachment, but from grounding. You are no longer using external feedback to locate yourself. Jung described this as the ego no longer orbiting the opinions of the collective. When that orbit breaks, you stop swinging between inflation and deflation. Your sense of self remains stable regardless of reaction. Stability changes everything. One of the most powerful consequences of this stability is selective intimacy. You become careful about who has access to your inner world. Not because you are guarded, but because access feels valuable. You no longer explain yourself to be understood. You allow understanding to emerge where it can. This naturally filters relationships. Fewer people enter, but those who do meet you without pretense. Depth replaces quantity. Another change is how you handle uncertainty. You no longer rush to resolve it. You allow it to exist. This tolerance for uncertainty signals maturity. People who cannot tolerate uncertainty seek control. People who can tolerate it hold authority. When others see that ambiguity does not unsettle you, they stop trying to destabilize you. Control tactics fail where patience exists. You also stop reacting to disrespect that is subtle and indirect. Jung would call this individuation reaching integration. The self no longer seeks completion through others. Connection becomes a choice rather than a need. Safety is rare. Safety attracts. Those who seek chaos drift away. Those who seek order remain. The final shift is subtle but decisive. You stop asking how to be treated well. The question no longer arises. Treatment follows structure. Structure comes from within. When that structure is stable, the system around you adapts automatically. There is no finish line, no recognition, just a quiet sense that things are where they belong. This is not mastery over others. It is mastery over leakage. And when leakage ends, power stops being something you chase. It becomes something you inhabit. If something here settled instead of excited you, that's the point. Real shifts don't announce themselves. You don't need to remember these habits. You'll notice when you no longer need to perform them. If you want to continue refining this kind of inner authority, without noise, without motivation, without pretending stay here. Quiet power isn't built by adding more. It emerges when nothing unnecessary is left.